Hi, it's Phil here from Revive My Ride, and today I'm going to talk you through the method that I've found that really works to remove wax oil, underbody wax from cars when I'm working on them. I'll be sure to show you all the tools and all the products I use, and of course including PPE, with links in the description step by step so you can do this yourself at home. But before I go any further, because I've got an international audience, wax oil is a product we use in the UK and I'm not sure if it's available internationally. And we've used it for donkey years in the UK to protect the underbody of our cars from rust in the winter. Now it's a really simple product, it's literally a white spirit and wax. I'm sure that you have a product in your country that's really similar to it. However, the problem with wax oil is if it's an area where stone chips and gravel can hit whatever's been covered with the wax oil, then it just chips away over time, and also it becomes brittle over time and cracks, and that allows water ingress, and then of course rust starts to form. And then to compound this, if you want to treat that with a rust treatment and then repaint, then the wax gets in the way of that and it stops those products from working properly. So you really have to get rid of the wax oil, underbody wax, whatever you're using, before you can get on with restoring and treating the metal. Before you start to do this work, ideally you would have run your car through a car wash with an underbody chassis wash, just to get rid of any kind of like loose mud and dirt and things like that. Or alternatively, if you have a pressure washer, you can give it a good blast off underneath. And that's just to get rid of any kind of like loose dust and dirt and things like that. It's just going to make your life a lot easier. So you've probably noticed that my car is a body on frame car, which means I've had to lift the body in order to get access to this. But the methods I'm about to talk to you about will work for unibody cars, you know, the more modern cars where the chassis is part of the frame, all pressed steel. But let's have a quick look at this chassis rail, and then you can see step by step what I do in order to get this back to nice clean metal, or back to the original paintwork. Okay, so this chassis all the way along is actually painted white. So everything that you can see here is actually just wax oil that's become black over time or has become covered in dirt. And just to illustrate that point, you can see here some of the white paint showing through from underneath. Okay, so let's get to it. So the first step is mechanical removal of as much of the dirt and wax oil as possible before we move on to other cleaning products. And so for this step, you're going to want gloves, glasses, scraper and a wire brush. Now the scraper will be much better for you whenever you've got a flat surface underneath your car, which most unibody cars will. Won't be very useful on tubular framed cars because you can only do a small area with it. So that's where I would use the wire brush. And I've even got a smaller wire brush for difficult to reach areas, you know, over the tops and behind and that sort of thing. And if I was using the scraper, then I'd be doing this. You can see that the wax oil becomes quite brittle with age, and especially if it's a cold day, and you can literally just chip some of it away. I am doing the back edges as well behind here. It's just a little bit harder to show that on camera. Okay, so that method I've been showing you so far, just using hand tools, is quite a gentle method, and so a lot of the original paint will be left intact. And if you've just got a few small rust areas or bits of paint to touch up, then that's ideal. You don't want to take all the original paint off. But if you know that you're going to be doing a lot of rust removal as part of the process, you might want to move to a powered method. So here I've got like a knotted wire wheel on an angle grinder, and so that will remove the underbody wax and get the rust off, you know, the majority of the rust all in one go. And where you've got the access, you may want to skip to this powered method because of course it's going to be a lot faster. But be careful, because these are an absolute animal and they'll make a mess of your skin, you know, if you bind and it jumps at you. So in addition to the PPE I was wearing earlier, I've now moved to long sleeves. Of course I already have my glasses, but you may want to consider adding a visor at this point. It may seem like overkill, but those wires can fly out at quite a velocity. And this is actually an impact resistant visor. Don't get confused with the ones people were using during COVID. And of course some ear defenders to protect your hearing, because this process can get pretty loud, especially in a garage or an enclosed space. As an alternative, you can get a slightly different type of wheel, and this might give you better access into some areas that are a bit more restricted. Okay, so let me show you how it's done. And finally, if you want a powered method that's a little bit gentler, then I use one of these. This wire wheel is not as abrasive and it doesn't spin quite as fast, and so that's much more likely to leave a lot of the original paint on. It's a little bit slower than the angle grinder, but it's certainly faster than using a wire brush. Clarke make this heavy duty flexible, which just goes to a normal electric drill. And so what you'll find is you get much better access with this in difficult to reach spaces. I'll just show you the setup quickly. Okay, so you can see that it just goes into the chuck of your normal electric drill. And I tend to clamp the drill down because if this chuck's spinning, then you want to make sure it's secure and it's not going anywhere near you while you're working. And as you can see, the flexible's got quite a lot of length, and then you get this little handle, and then of course there's a chuck at the other end for holding whatever attachment you want to put into it. Okay, so let's see this in action, and then that'll be it for mechanical cleaning, and we can move on to the next step. Okay, so now you can see quite a lot of the original paint on the chassis that was under the underbody wax, but there's still quite a lot of areas of the wax still there. I purposely left some there so that I could do a good demo for you. With the best will in the world, you would still have some residual here and there, especially in hard to reach areas where you couldn't get in with your scraper or your wire brush tools. So what I've found is that standard thinners, and you can pick these up from any paint shop really, and they're for cleaning your spray guns and things like that. This works really well at removing the wax as well, but you probably noticed there's a bit more PPE, and this is really important. So what I've got is some really good chemical resistant gloves. I've used these quite a lot with thinners and with other materials, and it still hasn't denatured and it protects your hands really well. But even more important, I've got a mask here, and this one's effective against organic vapors. And this is especially important if you're working in a garage. Of course you should try to ventilate the garage as well as you could, but because you're working close to it, you will still be getting some of those vapors. Okay, so let's see all of this in action then. So I've just got like a normal green scrubber, and I found that these work really well. And just a container for the thinners, and I'm just going to decant some of this into the container. You don't really need that much. Did a really bad job of pouring then, and I should have had my gloves on. So I'm going to get my mask on because I can already smell the vapors, and I don't want that getting on my lungs and irritating my throat. So the technique I use is like this. I have my thinners and my scrubber, and I just literally scrub away at the residue of the wax. And then what I have is some shop cloth ready to go. Because what will happen is that thinners will evaporate off, and then the wax will just resettle again. So it's important that you're ready to wipe it away. So let's give that another try. Okay, and then straight away with the cloth. And then once that cloth is really dirty, then I just have a bucket I throw it in, but just be careful because of course all of this stuff is going to be really flammable. So it's important you don't do any grinding or something like that, and you get rid of it straight away after when you finish. So let's keep going and get you a little bit closer to the action so you can see what's going on. Okay, so as you can see, we're making progress, but no matter how you do it, it's a difficult and time-consuming process. But the reason you're trying to do it right is because you want to rust treat under there or you want to repaint, and the wax will stop the rust treatment from working properly or the new paint from adhering. So let's have a good look at it and then I'll explain why there's one more step. So these dark smears that you can see here are wax residuals. So this is the last of the wax that we need to get removed. So the final step, believe it or not, is wheel cleaner. And this stuff is Williams Racing Wheel Cleaner, and I'll put a link to it in the description because if you can't get it in your country you'll want something similar. And I think pretty much all wheel cleaners will get that last remaining residue off. It's not as effective as thinners, so you wouldn't want to try to get it off when it's really thick with this product. But when you just have that thin layer left, then this stuff does a great job. It allows you to wipe away the last of that residue, but you really struggle if you try to do that with thinners. So that's why I use this as the last step. So let's see it in action. So again, on with the gloves because this stuff's nasty too. And then again, we've got our cloth handy. So you can see those brown streaks there, and that's the wax. Comes with this handy little spray nozzle, so you can just spray it onto your cloth really easily. And you can see it just wipes away this stuff, just watch. As you can see, in some areas I find it easier just to spray the alloy wheel cleaner, directly onto the surface that I'm trying to clean. Okay, so yeah, so that's how I do it. Obviously this was a really easy to reach area, but really good for filming. All those nooks and crannies and underneath the car, especially in a unibody car, it's a lot harder to get to those. But if you do want to paint or you want to rust treat, then you really do have to get it clean as a whistle, otherwise those products just won't work properly. Okay, so as you can see, this is really clean now. Can you see that tiny bit of yellow there? Well, that's a little small piece of wax, so I'm going to have to come back and get that, because otherwise if I tried to paint, then it would just bobble and fall back off again. So this is the sort of thing you're looking for. Everything like that needs to be gone. Here's an area that I'm going to need to rust treat now, and that's really clean now, so I'll probably sand that back, and then I can put some rust treater on that. And of course, once that's cured, then I can go ahead and paint this in. So I hope that helped some of you out there, and if it did, then please give me a thumbs up. And if you've got any questions or comments at all, go ahead and post them below and I'll try to help if I can. And finally, the next step is for me to do some rust treatment and some painting, and I'm going to use the Pour 15 system. So if that interests you at all, then please consider subscribing and clicking the bell, and you'll be notified when that video comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.